Will you settle for the things you used to settle for in the past? Are you going to settle for low self-worth behavior, or are you going to pass this and be in your worth? That's your manifestation. That's where it lives, is on the other side. From To Be Magnetic, this is the Expanded Podcast with your host, Lacy Phillips. As the leading destination for neural manifestation, we dispel the woo-woo in order to help you create real, tangible results based on neuroplasticity, psychology, epigenetics, and energetics. Our goal is to normalize the practice of manifestation and empower you to get into the driver's seat of your life in order to manifest the experiences, relationships, and things that most align with your authenticity. Part of our manifestation process entails expanding past your limiting subconscious beliefs. Therefore, by tuning into this podcast with interviews from experts, thought leaders, spiritual teachers, scientists, and those with neural manifestation success stories, you're starting the process of expanding your subconscious in order to see to believe that anything you desire is possible. And by pressing play, the process begins.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Expanded Podcast. Jessica here. So it's beginning to be that time of year again when the holidays are approaching us. We're starting to think about New Year's intentions, what we want to call in for the next year, how we want to wrap up this year. And it's actually such a beautiful and powerful time for manifestations. Our triggers are heightened. We're starting to take inventory of what worked this past year and what didn't. And we start to look forward to a version of ourselves we hope to be in the new year. The really exciting part is we don't need to wait until January to start that. We can start it right now. So we have an incredible challenge that we're doing the month of December all the way through January to run you through into the new year called the Manifestation Challenge. We did the Magnetism Challenge last year and had so much success. 91% of the people that participated were able to manifest something on the other side of the challenge. 91%. So that means if you join the challenge with us, there is a very high probability that your manifestation will connect with you in the new year. This challenge is a bit more robust from last year, really actionable and accountable, and we're really trying to handhold you through it. So if you guys have not worked through the manifestation process, you're in a slump with your manifestations, things aren't quite coming through, you really want to commit, but you're unable to find the time or keep yourself accountable to continue on with the work, or you're brand new and you've been thinking about doing this for a long time, but weren't sure when, now's the time to join. When you join the pathway, you can participate in the Manifestation Challenge. We're going to walk you through how to manifest, all of the daily reprogramming, taking inventory over this past year, seeing what worked for us, what didn't, and then start to call in the new version of self we want to connect with on the other side for 2022. You'll craft your list with us, get us all set, ready to go, and even get some support during the holidays because I know it can be really triggering. And the really exciting part is this year we have 4 live calls. So we have 2 calls with Lacy and I and 2 calls with the coaches to really answer your questions, get clarity on what you're calling in, and help you step by step through this process. This is a $225 value that we're offering completely free if you are in the pathway with us. So this is like full access. You get to ask questions directly. We get to handhold you through the process. And we found that the reason these challenges are so effective is because we're putting this intention to do it together. We have a 6-week calendar. It's totally feasible to do through the holidays. We have some off days and down days, and it's really going to be the most supportive thing to help connect with the new version of you want to see in the next year. So start calling in your manifestations with us. Join us in the Manifestation Challenge. It's starting December 1st. And if you are not in the pathway yet, we are going to have a limited time sale. So check the show notes for a link to our sale code to get into the pathway for one of our lowest rates of the year. That again is for new members and can't be applied retroactively. So make sure to look out for new insights for the Manifestation Challenge. It will all be released live on December 1st within the pathway membership. And we are so excited to connect with you. It's going to be an incredible year. So in today's episode, we have gotten so many questions around test and subconscious fears lately. And we talked about subconscious fears in an Instagram post of how they're keeping you small. So the checklist we had on the post was you feel like a late bloomer, you always feel left out of things, you simultaneously want to hide and be seen, you assume you can never have what you actually want. It's really going into all of the ways that we feel small. So we decided to do a best in class episode all around those topics to really help you and support you around the holidays. We're about to kick off our manifestation challenge next week. So we thought this would be a good time to look at some of the triggers and ways we're playing small before we start to jump into what we want to call in for the next year. We also have an incredible tip from Kat, one of our previous process guests, and she really breaks down how she used her authentic code to find the 2 blocks that were keeping her from her dreamy manifestation. I know you guys are going to love this one. There's tips from myself, Lacy, Dr. Tara, the TBM coaches, and I know you guys are going to enjoy.
Hi everyone, this is Kat Lau from episode 142. In that episode, I shared my journey, how I manifested a move to Spain, my partner, remote work and moving my business online, slow living and the lifestyle that comes with that, as well as how I used drawing as a tool to help my manifestations come to life. Listening back to the episode really reminds me of how we're always constantly evolving. We're all going through death and rebirth to come back to our truth and authentic selves. I've revisited the Authentic Code workshop to invite this new version of me to dream a little bit, and I've also been able to simplify and refine my manifestation process, which has shown me my patterns, which has been completely game-changing. One of my biggest realizations is that simply focusing my attention on my authentic being is so powerful and magnetizing for all of the material manifestations to come true. Over the past 7 months, I've manifested authentic creations. So for me, that means the courses I'm offering, collaborations with aligned brands, being seen more, so speaking at events, and also holding more space for bigger groups of people. For me, that's been super meaningful and purposeful. We've also manifested a vintage camper van with my partners, so that has been one of the biggest teachers this year for sure. More recently, I manifested a trip to the Canary Islands, flights fully paid for, and my biggest manifestation this year is a lifestyle that is even more aligned with me than the one I had before. So right now we are in Biarritz. It's a town on the southern Atlantic coast of France. I've called in a sea view apartment, of course a French market that I can do groceries every morning. It was also really important for me to have specialty coffee shops, a good yoga studio, and an international community. So 2 blocks showed up when I was manifesting this. One was voicing my needs and taking space. So 2 of them energetically are quite similar, and I felt a lot of shame when I was asking for this and voicing my need for this because I don't really need a sea view apartment to survive, but to thrive, I do. And thriving for me brings me back to my authentic code, which when I thrive, I'm able to create, I'm able to grow, and I'm able to evolve. Of course, some tests are showing up as well to see if I feel truly deserving of what I'm calling in, or even now, if I'm deserving of the life that I'm living. And I've really been able to see the pattern that's coming up. So usually a sensation comes up in my body. It's usually uncomfortable. Something like anxiety can show up. So when this shows up, I know that something's not aligned with me. In my old pattern, I would try to hide this with perfectionism, with how I dressed. And right now I'm also trying to hide this with the French that I'm speaking. I'm trying to really be fluent, even though I'm not. So it makes me ask, what am I truly hiding? And then the shadow comes up with that question. The shadow here being fear of rejection. To bring myself out of that shadowy space, I come back to my authentic code to remind myself what's really important to me. And in this case, perfectionism and me speaking perfect French isn't as important at all to the warmth and kindness that I carry myself with. Because this is my essence and nobody can take this away from me. So then I can ask myself, how do I support my authentic self to come out? And the answer in this cycle is to take space. And visually, taking space for me is walking around in my own bubble, full of my authenticity. So what's more magnetic than that? Usually when I tap back into this space, this is when my manifestations come right through to me. I'm super excited to get my hands on the TBM Manifestation Journal to help me map out my patterns even clearer. And also for those of you who want to connect, I'm always sharing my stories on Instagram. So I'd love to hear from you there. Happy manifesting.
And now a word from our partners.
Guys, I think I have found my favorite new product from Blue Blocks. So you know Blue Blocks is the blue light blocking glasses company. Blue light disrupts our hormones and our serotonin levels and messes up our circadian rhythm and our sleep. And while I'm stacked in so many of their products, this one is seriously fixing a problem that I didn't even realize could be fixed. So they just came out with a Lumi Clip Sleep Plus device. Essentially, it's a reading light that's rechargeable in 100% red light, eliminating any blue or green light. It's with the sleep technology, which means that it is going to help calm your nervous system and help produce melatonin, prepare your body for sleep. It is perfect as a little clip-on reading lamp before bed. It has a flexible, adjustable neck, and then you can kind of just clip it onto your book and screen it over and read your book and turn it on that way. It has an 8-hour battery life, so you can recharge it and then clip it. Completely portable. The other fun thing you can do with it as well is if you don't have Lumi red lights in your bathroom, when you get up to brush your teeth or wash your face at night, or even if you get up in the middle of the night to use the restroom, having this clip in there is going to be key because it will not wake you up. It will keep you calm. You don't have to pee while keeping your eyes closed to keep your calm sleep cycle if you're anything like me, because that's what I do. You can just bring this red light with you and it'll keep everything in balance without needing to turn on your light or pee in complete darkness. So at night, what tends to happen is Daniel and I have our Lumi red light plugged in that's on his side of the bed. But if he decides to go to sleep first, then I have to continue reading my book and then at some point get up, walk around the bed and turn the light off, which is kind of a pain in the behind. So this light is solving all of my late night reading problems by being able to clip onto my book, and I can control the light and read my book easily and fall asleep when I need to. It has been so useful and I've been using it every night. The other really cool thing that this clip does is you can clip it on the side of your laptop or your computer and angle it towards the screen. And so we know our computers are emitting blue light that isn't good for us and keeping us awake and not good for our hormones all day long. But if you put the red light on it, it starts to cut some of that blue light out. So during the afternoon, as the sun starts going down, maybe you can't get off your computer. And yes, you have your red light glasses on, but now it's protecting the rest of your face, neck, skin, everything else exposed to the blue light, and will get you feeling so much better and more prepared for sleep. It is super affordable, and I am so excited. I cannot stop using it every single night. They have 3 different brightnesses on it, 25%, 50, and 100%. So if you are interested in testing out the LumiClip Sleep Plus or any other blue blocks and blue light blocking products, you can use code MAGNETIC, MAGNETIC, to get 15% off. So you've heard Lacy share her experience with seed probiotics, and I have to say I am a raving fan of seed as well. So I really care about gut health. I've struggled with it a ton, and I'm always looking for new ways to support my gut, especially strengthen the gut barrier, my gut immune. The gut-brain axis is so important. So when my gut's not good, neither is my skin, my brain fog, my cognition, any of that stuff. So in order to be my best, it really starts in the gut for me. But what I really wound up finding was not only do you need multiple strains of probiotics, so you can't just have one strain, which is typically what's in your kimchi or kombucha or yogurt, but they also have to reach the gut. So they have to go past your stomach acid and surpass the bile in order to reach your colon or your digestive tract. And a lot of probiotics aren't able to do that. So that's why finding a good probiotic is so important, because it can really render it ineffective if it doesn't reach that. So a friend had recommended seed because she was having great results with it and feeling phenomenal on it, not really having any digestive issues at all after taking it. And as I looked into seed further, I found they're really the most science-backed probiotic out there on the market. The scientist who coined the term probiotic is their chief scientist. And they really move from a research-back position where they found the most diverse strains that are helping the most things for overall gut health. So they have 24 different strains within the probiotic. But what really sold me was that they have a prebiotic capsule that helps the probiotics reach the colon and stomach without being impacted by any stomach acid or bile, which means all of the strains reach the part of the body that they're meant to reach and therefore are more effective. So I decided to give them a try, and I noticed, honestly, after the first week, my digestion was back on track again, my skin health was getting better, I cleared up my perioral dermatitis, I have been sharing seed with family and friends. They're also such a sustainable brand, as Lacy had mentioned. All of their products are really trying to help the environment. Their packaging is biodegradable, algae paper, and compostable. They're really just a brand that you can get behind long term. You want to be supported by them. You trust their research and science backed behind the science of the gut and the strains that are going into your probiotic. And they make it really easy by sending you a new package every single month without thinking of having to pick it up at the grocery store or renew or any of that stuff. So I cannot recommend them enough. If you want to hear more about my experience, feel free to DM me. I'm always happy to talk on gut health and support. If you would like to try out Seed, you can receive 15% off your first month with our code TBM15 at checkout. Check out the show notes to see their website. They have tons of science and facts and infos on probiotics there. And I hope you guys enjoy your Seed probiotics.
All right, on to the episode.
Tests are not pass-fail. They are simply opportunities for me to stop settling for old patterns and get closer to my manifestation. We face tests every single day. If you think about your car that won't start, an emotional trigger that shows up in a difficult conversation, a friend pushing your boundaries, a dreamy yet emotionally unavailable suitor, or a boss that refuses to respect you, it seems that tests are really presented to us almost on a daily basis in various ways. And from my understanding of tests, it seems like it's the universe's way of asking and showing us where else can we grow.
When I used to practice old, what I sometimes called rhetoric manifestation, new age manifestation, think positive, I started to notice when I dropped all of that and I watched what I did when and started to figure out the patterning around manifestation, I would always be tested when I was stepping into a new level, for lack of a better word, because often when we're manifesting something, it's greater than we already are. An example of that could be with partnership. I had, been a doormat for many years, like the LA doormat, constantly having the emotionally unavailable person. And so when I let that go and I was like, I'm ready to actually really call in the person I want, that's when I started to realize that self-worth is more of the law of attraction than positivity. So in alignment with self-worth, what I figured out in manifestation is we're just attracting the same worth. The worth of what we want is, having to match and equal the worth of where we're at. That's how we connect together. That's the real law of attraction. And I started to notice that because we tend to manifest greater than we already are, usually we're being asked to grow our self-worth, our deservingness, to step into a higher level of that to match what we're wanting. And therefore, whatever's happening in that weird vortex, that magnetic pull of what you want to you, the universe begins to test you. And it's asking you, and it's literally this: will you settle for the things you used to settle for in the past? Because what I came to believe in manifestation is the universe's only objective for us in this lifetime is to get back into that whole, worthy, authentic self that we were born as, or what our soul is. And, going through the world, we experience pain, shame, programming that kind of creates this onion layer around us. And therefore, our job now in manifestation is to peel those onion layers back and get to that true authenticity. So anywhere where we're a doormat or we're settling or we have low self-worth isn't really ours. Truthfully, it's something we've picked up through conditioning along the way. Again, may it have been pain, shame, or programming. So I think that that's really why the universe tests you, because basically it's kind of preparing you to grow into this next level, but you will be tested. So the lower your self-worth was prior, so going back to my example of dating, and I was doing all the things wrong. I was like sleeping with people too soon. I was like coming over too late. I mean, just really low self-worth behavior that I think many of us have probably been at, just not knowing better. So when it came to actually manifesting in the true partner where the worth was greater than where I was tested each time. And so that testing process tends to show up in two different ways: opportunities or triggers. So when you're being tested with, say, going into dating new suitors, it'll be the universe literally asking you, are you going to settle for low self-worth behavior, or are you going to pass this and be in your worth, unabashedly, unafraid? Tests aren't pass or fail. I just energetically don't know a better way to describe them, because if you do quote unquote fail a test, you'll just receive another one. So it's not like you're pushing your manifestation away. It's not like you've, done something really bad. In fact, when I did work with clients, I would often tell them to run into the fire and burn yourself so bad that you are never tested with that thing again. Like you've learned your lesson and you're not tempted by the old emotionally unavailable thing, the toxic job, whatever the circumstance might be. But yes, you will be tested. And the closer you get to your manifestation, the more subliminal the tests become, the harder to define. And in How to Manifest, the way I could energetically describe them is it's kind of like a carrot's being dangled in front of you. And it's like, are you going to take the carrot, or are you going to really, really own your worth, what you want, your desires, and really say no to anything that isn't that? So that's kind of in a nutshell, energetically, how I discovered tests. And many people listening who maybe haven't experienced this process yet, it would be really common when I would talk about it. People would be like, oh my gosh, you're right. I am always tested. And I never really noticed that.
So I want to reiterate and just expand on a couple of things that you said. I really like the way it's written in the workshop because it's so real, where it says, are you going to settle for the same shitty thing you've settled for before? That's actually a question that we should ask ourselves when presented with this sort of choice. Even thinking about things like, should I date that guy, as a test gives you that sense of perspective, because when you're emotionally involved in a situation, you lose perspective. If it's your friend that you're advising, it's much easier to say, that's not what you said you wanted, or, don't rush in too soon. So acknowledging that, okay, this is a test from the universe allows you to sort of have that conversation with yourself that you'd have with a friend or a well-meaning friend would have with you. Dating is the place that this really shows up a lot. And what you tend to see is yourself or other people settling. And to me, settling is the opposite of being expanded or manifesting. If you settle, you're just wasting time because you will realize at some point that that wasn't right for you. And then you'll have to start again. So passing tests is a way of accelerating your manifestations.
Okay, Heather, this one is for you. Increased expenses test. My roommate is moving out and I'm so stoked to be able to have this prime apartment to myself, though it will be tight on the budget to now pay for his portion. I see this as a great opportunity from the universe that I'm up-leveling and I'm manifesting the funds and ability to be able to afford this apartment on my own. Do I start hinting to people that I may be looking for a short-term roommate to help float me a couple of months until I can figure it out? Or is that communicating to the universe that I do not trust I will be able to manifest living here on my own?
Great question. And I actually want to start really quickly with just reminding everybody what a test is. So a test is something if it impedes on your boundaries, if it makes you feel like you're settling, or it brings you guilt or shame. So I want to say that first because this is an expense test on like, where are you being tested? And also, I love that this person already knows that this could be a great opportunity from the universe, that he or she is up-leveling and manifesting the funds. And so to me, putting it out there that you might want someone just for a short period, that's lack right there because can you really not afford this? And I think that that's where so many people forget. Like they just assume, oh, I'm not going to be able to do this, but can you? Really look to see like, what does your budget look like? Is this possible? And also, what's the energetics behind this? Do you want a roommate? Because if you don't want a roommate, do not bring a roommate in. I think that that's so important. And what's the feeling that you want by living by yourself? What is this going to do for you? And I think that we lose so much of our why and how do you want to feel. And if this person can really be thinking about how they want to feel, the idea of bringing somebody in, they'll be able to like really kind of detox and delegate that out. And then that's not something that they want. And this really is about trust in knowing that if you need to make cuts here and there, because the energetic of living on your own is so much more important than maybe, the extra coffee once a week or whatever that might be. I think it's always getting back to the why. What do you want to feel and why? And that will really help to see, is this a true test? And you know what? If you can't afford it after a few months, then bring somebody in. But putting that out before you even know, to me, feels like there is a lack of trust.
Okay, fear or test. I'm asked in the rut, what are the tests I've been facing? And I quickly wrote things like getting fired from every job I've had in the last 5 years. I'm a hard worker, but I can't be fake. And I also need to feel in charge. Not getting a chance in jobs I don't really want to do anymore, not hearing back from interesting career opportunities, not winning the lottery, etc. I thought they were tests as the universe ways to push me towards creating my own thing. I'm a projector and focus on my expression and creativity, which is my authentic code. It was a way of the universe is telling me that you don't fit in those jobs or this town anymore, so please go. Are those actually tests, or am I playing the victim, convincing myself that I'm too special to stay in these and ignoring a financial crisis, telling myself that something better will come along?
More than any of it, yes, to a degree, that's correct. When you're in the rut, 100%, you understand that you're barking up the wrong trees and stuff like that. But if you're continuing to have the same outcome at every experience, even if it is in, say, one town or you have a different creative interest, it's a you thing at that point. Or I'll say this to myself when I've been in these circumstances in different ways, it's a me thing. I have to look at what inside of me is attracting that over and over and over again. So I love when people can recognize the word victim without being triggered in this day and age, because it's an incredibly triggering word. And so why I say that is because when it comes to manifestation, the way that we truly take our power back when we have been victimized in any circumstance is by being able to heal and integrate it when possible and when we can and when we're at the right point in that integration, is where we actually take all of our power back. It can't rule us anymore or have us have a trauma response or et cetera. or have as activating of trauma responses. And why I say that, how it connects to manifestation, is it's truly how we take our power back and become magnetic again when we've been in different types of really tough situations. So I love that you can use that word very freely in your specific circumstance. So with that said, I do have to say, yes, if that continues to happen over and over and over again, there is something that you're projecting to receive that back. Even though, again, they may not be the right careers, you still should be able to hold a job, right? Like, and as someone who has been in a different aspect of my life in dating that's happened, I had to go, okay, so what about me is attracting these experiences? Because in manifestation, everything that's coming into our life is a mirror. The universe is trying to push us back into our true, whole, worthy, authentic self. So when we continue to attract experiences where we're being fired or in dating rejected or heartbroken or etc., even if we aren't with the right person, it shouldn't end up in heartbreak. It should be like, oh, this isn't the right fit. Thank you. This has been, nice getting to know you. And I wish you well. And, in a really integrated situation, we can be in each other's lives, no problem, because there's an emotional attachment there. If we look at that through the lens of career, we should be able to have the same experience with career. So if you're really integrated in the situation, it would most likely be you leaving the experience because it's not the right fit, right? Or both of you coming to terms like, oh, you're such a hard worker, you're so great at what you do, but this might not be the right fit for both of us. So there is a thing there that needs to be healed and integrated. Even if you're being pushed out of the nest, pushed off of a cliff, and directed out of a rut, there's definitely some unblocking there that needs to be done.
Whenever we're sort of like the universe is saying, okay, go, you need to follow your own thing, we can, no matter what place we're in, always say, okay, well, why were those things coming up for me? What are lessons that I can learn there? And how can I be accountable to integrate my authenticity even more so? Yes, the universe is guiding you, but also if those experiences were happening, what are some lessons that you can look at from them if they weren't aligned and very gentle situations?
This is how science and the energetics of tests can really merge, because what we are doing, what we're being called to do is create magnetism by walking through the fears, just as you described, where we settle is based on those. And tell me what that is again, what those 5 clump together. What is that called?
The survival emotions are fear, anger, disgust, shame, and sadness. There are obviously a lot more, but they're the basic ones.
That's the key. Exactly what you're describing, what people come up against. And it's the fear, it's the survival. It's all the cortisol inducing, what if I lose out on this? I'm too old, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, whatever the thing can be. We're being called to walk past that fear. And that's what creates the magnetism, because in that we're communicating to the universe that our worth and our deserving is so strong that we know that we deserve and can have what we want. When people are faced with tests and all of that's coming up for them, the fear, the survival, the cortisol is flooding, you're saying that the answer is to really turn to a DI or to do the work around it, to overwrite. That's what's going to help you walk past the fear.
I think it's even a bit more than what you've said, Lacy. Turning to a DI in that moment wouldn't be enough, but daily practice of DIs would, make you able to change states. If you wait till you're in a state like that and you do a DI, well, like I told you I did today, then, it could definitely make you feel better. But it's the daily practice that makes you able to get yourself out of that state quicker. It's okay to have a bad day because a relationship broke up. It's okay to mourn that for some period of time, but there has to come a time where you decide that you're going to pick yourself up and move forward again and not make either the same mistake or a poor decision based on that bad experience in future.
Okay, so Atara, feeling unsafe trigger. I've discovered a pattern of I'm not okay. When it's triggered in any area, I act out by overeating, controlling, and anger. This is keeping me small and stuck. How can I navigate?
Yeah, so I love this one. And this is one that I personally dealt with for years and years. Comfort eating was something that no matter how disciplined I was, no matter how many times I thought I resolved it, just always came back because it was so deep in my subconscious that food is love, food is comfort, food is the answer. And when this happens is when we really are avoiding the trigger and we're looking for something to make the feeling go away. I think we talked about this a little bit before in a podcast where this is literally the reason we created the Soothe DI. When I sat and I made that DI, it was to create something to disrupt patterns because we do have a moment when we get a trigger and we go to reach for our numbing behavior. We're really using whatever it is, whether it's food, alcohol, fixing everybody's problems as the vehicle to then have a feeling. But the feeling is attached to us going through that process, right? We created a positive association around that process, and that's why our subconscious throws it forward. So we want to disrupt that. What tends to happen is this. If we feel we're not okay, and if that is really a deep limiting belief or an internal representation that we hold of ourselves, especially with trauma, especially with PTSD, especially with low self-worth, we don't realize that our brain is constantly, unconsciously scanning the area around us, looking for anything that projection can land on so it knows it can keep us safe from it after it does that. And a lot of times that trigger doesn't even exist in front of us. It's not real. It's just a pure projection. But our mind knows that I'm not okay is such a strong thing it needs to protect us from that it's just trying to look out for us. When we get overloaded, and that can happen because of emotions, that can happen because of external situations or any kind of stimulus, being on our phone too much television, too much noise, what happens is we lose our ability to critically think. That means no prefrontal cortex, right? We go in our automatic behaviors. We're usually also in sympathetic. So we are no longer in control. So we need to come back into control by disrupting that process instead of just allowing it, because every time we allow it, we're reinforcing it and we're telling our subconscious, this is what we need to do in order to fix this. So how do we go through this? When you get that need to control your anger, set a timer, 5 minutes. Allow yourself to be as angry as you need to for those 5 minutes. And when that alarm goes off, wipe your tears, go back to what you're doing. Allow yourself to release it. When you want to overeat, tell your mind, because we usually get a big adrenaline response too, because it knows. It's almost like a drug. Oh, we're feeling really bad. Oh, what do we need? What do we need? And in that moment, let's say this was me, my subconscious isn't going to go, what is the most aligned behavior we could use for Atara? He's been working so hard. What is the most aligned with his personal growth path? It does not care. It's like, what's fast? What works? That's your brain's job. Keep us safe, expend as little energy as possible doing so. So we get a lot of adrenaline because there's fear. So in order to put that adrenaline at bay, the first thing I tell my clients to do is say to your mind, we can do that, especially if it's comfort eating. Okay, that is available to me. We can do that. But we're going to do this first. And that could be any DI, really. The reason I'm saying the Soothe DI is because the Soothe DI is affirmation-based. There's a space for you to give yourself emotionally what you need in that moment, whether it's grace, understanding, ease, patience, a space to be angry and accept that it's okay for you to feel that way. You do that, you're feeding your subconscious, then you come out of it, and then you can ask yourself, do I still want to do that behavior? Now you're back in your prefrontal cortex and you get to consciously decide. So even if you decide to go have that snack, chances are you'll eat less. Or maybe you'll be like, actually, I'm good. And the more you disrupt that pattern and you show up like this, you're going to start building that association that it's okay for you to come back into your body when this happens, that your subconscious does not need to come forward and your automatic behaviors do not need to come save you.
Such an important tool and piece of the puzzle. I think so many times when we're feeling elevated and triggered, it is something about the situation is unsafe, whether that means we're unsafe because we're not seen, we're unsafe because we're not liked, we're unsafe because this person is hurting my feelings, or I feel hurt in this, or they're exposing something about me I don't like about myself, or I don't feel like I can control what's happening, and so I feel unsafe. It's always going back to that safety and saying, in this moment, I am safe.
So I'm quickly interrupting this episode to invite you, if you're ready to start your manifestation journey, or if anything you've heard in our manifestation episodes has piqued your interest, to begin. We have a la carte workshops in everything from the basics bundle, which is what we recommend to everyone who starts. It's the formula that actually teaches you how to manifest, unblocked inner child, and unblocked shadow. We also have a la carte workshops on love and money. But the real gem is the Pathway membership because it encompasses every single workshop we have. It's a year-long membership with full access to the few a la carte offerings we have and exclusive workshops not available anywhere else, such as the daily practice, which is what everybody in the Pathway uses, hopefully at least 3 times a week to daily, in order to truly create the new neural pathways that one needs in order to manifest, and houses the library of our deep imaginings, which is our unique hypnosis process that allows you to get into your subconscious and overwrite those old neural pathways, creating the new ones.
And for a limited time, we have our winter sale going on. So check the show notes if you are a new member signing up for a discount in order to join the Pathway.
Okay, now back to the episode. The energetic beneath instant magnetism is stepping through fear. That's all it is. What are you fearing in this exact moment? Step through that. What is the fear that's right in front of me that I can take action to walk past? And then based on how much I fear it, so the greater the fear, the more magnetism it'll produce instantly. Any facet, any area of your life, this is all happening in, as mundane as that can sound. There's opportunity all of the time. And it just is coming down to pain points and the fear around your pain points. Because ultimately, again, I'm going to say it until we're all blue in the face. The universe's only intention is to get us back into our whole worthy selves. When we're in our total whole worthy selves, we don't have not that we don't have insecurities, because humans do. As just, a totally whole being, we're not really looping on those things anymore when we're fully integrated.
I love that key there is your instant magnetism comes from stepping through your fear. So going in and doing that work and knowing what you're working on blocking will be very clear of, okay, these are the fears I'm trying to work through and overcome. Okay, this is the action now I can take based off that fear. And then that's your track forward.
Totally. If you're experiencing any of the edges in your life, it means that something is orbiting and wants to come through. So if you can really lean into the edge, feel your feelings and be afraid, but also be ready to face the fears that are coming up and work through it, grounding into your worth, that's where you're going to connect with this manifestation. You're probably up against an edge. If you are, lean into it. It's really scary and it can be big. It can be a lot to hold in your nervous system, but that's why we have this work that guides you through that. Recognize which edge it might be. And at that point, use the energetics to navigate it. All you're doing is expanding and grounding into your worth. Fear is just the root of control, us controlling our lives to not be in pain or experience something or have hurt or any of it again. And it all really just comes down to either you're contrasting or expanding. And that's where at the end of the day, everything to do with manifestation is just energetics, and we're putting words on energy. I've actually been looking at my own life. I was really looking at fear versus openness. And what came up for me, I was noticing that I've been really controlling a lot of things lately in the fear of, like, what if I don't get enough sleep, or what if this happens, or what if I lose this thing, or et cetera. And then I was like, wow, really looking at the root of it, which is all to do with control. And they can go vice versa, where it's like, oh, I'm just controlling or fearing because I don't want to feel pain or discomfort or hurt. And when we're pushed to our edge, that's everything we're experiencing, right? So at the end of the day, while we're doing this work, maybe a really cool meditation is the awareness of, if you can have that awareness, like, am I in lack or abundance? Am I in expansion or contraction? Am I in fear or complete trust? If you can look at that at your edge, can you do the work around it to root down into your worth? And at the end of the day, the worth category and the part is always the expansion part. It's always the trust part. It's always the abundant part. But it's like you can't just choose and spiritually bypass. You have to dig in and you have to subconsciously get there.
Validation to be seen. I think I have a fear about living in my ego. I am someone who numbs with social media, scrolling way too much, but never posts from fear of judgment. Yet as a yoga teacher, I desire to be seen and want to share more of myself through social media. But I'm worried the only reason is because my ego wants to be stroked and is looking for validation. How can I figure out what is shadow that needs to be overcome and what is ego that is steering me away from my authenticity? I am so confused.
So number one, this is a person who's been programmed that you want to let go of all ego. And then number two, not having a clear definition for self of what ego means to this person. Ego is a very healthy thing actually to have. In fact, you're striving to have a healthy ego. If we didn't have an ego at all, we would walk into the road and get hit by a car and die. We would have no fear. So it's really getting clear about what ego is for you and what you want ego to be for you. If your soul path in this lifetime is to become like a Mother Teresa, an egoless, or, a monk in the Himalayas, then that's your path that you're headed down. But most people in society are, just trying to figure out who their authentic self is. And so I think at the end of the day, like really, really looking what fills me up, what lights me up. I know for me, it totally lights me up when I'll hop on and I'll do an Ask Me Anything on Instagram and get to interact with the community and they're curious about things and I get to share things and get feedback. That's so fun to me. Does it feed my ego? 1,000%. Any egos, anybody's ego that would feed. Half the reason we go to parties is to feed an ego. Half the reason we do kind of anything. And so that's where it's really beautiful to have healthy ego. If at the end of the day, your goal spiritually is to be completely unattached from any ego, it's a different life path. You most likely wouldn't be on Instagram at all if that's the case, because Instagram is an utterly ego-filled environment. So to me, it sounds like you have a desire to be seen on Instagram for your business. So to me, that's sounding like it's potentially authentic. I'd personally do a little bit of the authentic code and see what you truly desire. Which DI would you do for this, Jessica?
I would do one of our reinforcing ones. I would probably do reinforcing authentic code.
Personally, like I've been doing like the trigger one on stuff like this more to be like, what's going on here? Like, I got to get to the bottom of this. Like, what's up? And then finding the answer, you'll get a very clear answer. Am I doing this because I'm not getting love in other places that I need it? Or am I doing this because I actually do want to share and I do want to be seen and I do want to share my gift of yoga with other people? And this is what attracts other people to want to share that with me. So I would just get to the root of it. And also if you have picked up programming and especially spiritual settings and communities of what ego is, and it doesn't line up with your authentic perception of ego, ditch it. Deprogram that is what I would do. Just getting to the root of your authenticity and seeing what your truth is, and then running down the direction of your truth.
Totally. And yeah, I would do that trigger to get to the root. But then once you're like, okay, cool, it is part of my authenticity to be seen in this way, using that reinforcing one to say, cool, how can I feel safe reinforcing that I'm allowed to be seen? Yeah, part of my ego gets validation from it, but that's okay. It's also part of my authenticity. And so, you're kind of feeding two birds with one scone, so to speak, by posting.
Exactly. Totally agree. And what that reinforcing DI is going to help you do is to really detach more and more from any programming you may have picked up on ego that may not align with your definition and your authenticity.
Money and codependency. Whenever I buy nice things for myself, I have the urge and thought that I need to buy a gift or similar things for my sister and my mom. I think I believe that the money and success I have is not my own and that I need to share it with my family. What would be the root of this people-pleasing codependency or unlovability?
So it's definitely a little bit of all of them, especially because people pleasing, it's kind of like that low self-worth fruit that comes from codependency. And it sounds like they don't believe that they deserve the success that they have and that they can only have it if, their sister or their mother have it too. They can't hold still in their own spotlight. So they immediately need to divide it up amongst their family. And the people pleasing and the codependency aspect is that they're managing their loved one's needs and taking on the responsibility of pleasing them and ensuring that they too feel the success that they feel. And I would have this person also look at what shadows they're also running away from, because their default actions and thoughts show me that there's shame around having their own path and success. So are they nervous about what their mother and sister will think of them? Were they taught that having more than someone else made you a bad person? In this current dynamic, is it like the only dynamic you've known since childhood? And is dimming your light something that occurs regularly, even outside of your mother and sister, in order to receive love and acceptance from other people? The limiting belief that this person may have, which is when I'm successful, it hurts other people, which may be triggering that guilt, which is I did something bad. And then the action that supports that belief is, okay, well, let me just buy the same thing so that they are happy and also included, and that I don't become separate from like the unit. That's that codependency thing. Because if this person begins to shine on their own, it's changing that familial rhythm, and that can be really scary. So I would ask them, how is their desire to center their family meddling with their well-being? And how does, for example, buying their mother and sister the same item they purchased, how does that maintain their internal peace? Because the only way they can be at peace is if they put their family first.
How would you recommend unpacking some of that? Because I definitely have it's so funny. I was journaling about this yesterday, actually, the idea that if I become my fullest self or do something that I'm really proud of, then it will trigger others. And so I have to keep it at arm's length, or like only move forward inch by inch with approval in order to be seen fully. Otherwise, it'll like trigger others and they'll, I'll be rejected or something. How would this person navigate unpacking that? Would you say inner child? Would you say boundaries immediately? Like what would be kind of your RX?
Yeah, I mean, boundaries for sure will be helpful, but I think everything always goes back to inner child. And I think that this is a dynamic that they're, again, really familiar with. So I think it's really needing to show that there is safety, like for your inner child to be an individual, but also be a part of a group, and that you're not going to be necessarily like casted out or left behind, but that we are all individuals with our own unique talents and strengths, and we shine individually. No one loses out on that, right? Like for you to shine and be authentically yourself, everyone only has something to gain. So I think providing that high self-worth belief through inner child would be helpful to begin for this person to know that it is safe to be themselves, and they don't have to be afraid of being cast out from their family, or that they can't be successful on their own.
I think it's really helpful to play out those worst case scenarios. What would happen if someone was triggered? What would happen if you were rejected by that person? And usually when we let that go out, the end result is like, well, I would feel a feeling. And so we don't need to avoid a feeling, because that stems from when we were little kids. We didn't have the support, the tools being given to us to process our feelings. So we had to suppress them. And that became a survival strategy. And then we carry that into adulthood, and we learn to avoid all of these situations out of wanting to avoid the emotion that they are bringing. So it's really looking at that too, and discovering what emotion am I trying to avoid here, and how can I face it?
I love that, because even the way that you said that, well, I would feel a feeling. It's like, oh, well, I felt feelings before. I can handle that. It makes it feel so much more attainable.
When I work through that with clients, when they're having these like worst case scenario thoughts, I have like a little anxiety toolkit. And part of it is asking yourself, okay, did that kill me? Nope. Did you feel a feeling? Yep. Had you felt that feeling before? Yep. When you felt that feeling before, do you still feel it in the exact same way right now? Nope. Okay. So we have all of this past to look back on where you were able to feel without it overtaking you. You were able to work through that. So you have all this stuff to lean back into trust of, okay, I can do that again.
Test to express yourself. I've been working through a block that I do not matter. I'm learning the value of my voice and it feels great, but I'm also uncomfortable when I don't get to express myself. I keep running into situations in relationship and at work where I get really confident, clear, and connected on my values and in my worth about what needs to be expressed, and then all of a sudden the opportunity to express myself seems to have disappeared. Ghosted in the relationship, my annual review keeps getting pushed out. What is going on with this situation?
Finding your voice is the best feeling, and finding value in your expression and who you are and wanting to share that with the world is great. So congrats to this person. And I want to start off by saying every breath that we take is an opportunity to express ourselves. So no one can take that away. And I understand, the excitement behind being really prepared to voice your needs. And I see the situation as the universe testing you in how integrated you are with this block. Do you feel like your voice is only valuable within certain experiences? Are you withholding your honest expression for specific situations? We can't curate everything or package our voice and values in like a pretty box and wait for the perfect moment to open it. And we shouldn't have to. And I'd ask this person, are you waiting for these situations to occur in order to feel like you matter? These situations symbolize that this person still needs to prove their inherent worth. And I would say, don't wait. Don't wait for these situations to come to you. Find other ways that you can express yourself, because the person that matters the most in this process is you. And the person who needs to hear and hold your voice and worth the most is you. And there's definitely other areas in this person's life that require showing up and using their voice. I would seize those opportunities. And lastly, if you're feeling confident and clear and connected to your values, root into that truly. Stand tall in this new posture, strut your stuff, like do a twirl and a spin, like whatever you need to do to celebrate where you're going. And this level of self-worth still exists, even if you're not able to show it off to that one person, to that one experience. Don't let it disappear, because you matter.
Healthy striving is, how can I improve and be the best, most authentic version of self I can be? Whereas perfectionism is other focused. What will they think? And when we're talking about manifestation, when we're asking what will they think, we're putting our validation and our self-worth in the opinions of others instead of having that for ourselves.
When I used to glorify being a perfectionist, it's just a tactic to hide. And energetically, wherever we hide and wherever we play small, it dims our magnetism no matter what. And so being a perfectionist, is hiding from the fear of my perceived rejection for being myself. And authenticity and perfectionism, those are two different homes, two different islands. They can't really come together. And so one of them is really forcing us to be a machine. And the other one is allowing us to be human and to be fully ourselves.
With all reprogramming, we're changing our neural architecture. We're going in and giving ourselves healing in spaces where we may have had a lot of pain and suffering in the past. But in doing so, it's shifting our brain bit by bit. And it's also shifting our actions bit by bit, noticing where these things are coming up, implementing a different choice, understanding that to buck the norm of wanting to be a perfectionist all the time, you're going to run up against a really uncomfortable feeling. You're going to feel like you're doing something wrong when you put your work down when the day is over, instead of finishing and obsessing over the wording on that last email. You're going to feel like you failed, because that's how your body has trained you to feel. But it's just bit by bit over time, chipping away until you realize, okay, I can feel like this, but it's just a feeling and it can pass. And now I'm okay. And I'm actually honoring myself by doing that.
Yes, absolutely. And like that fear of people thinking less of you, right? Your nervous system, like, oh my God, like, what are they going to say? What are they going to think? Like, they're going to label me as this. But I think also another way to step that back too is, especially around if you're afraid to make a mistake, sometimes I ask myself, like, whose voice is that? Because sometimes we say, everyone's going to think this. If I don't do it perfect, everyone. And then it's like, okay, first, let's stop the train for a second. Who is everyone? And sometimes walking that back, I find that helpful for me because sometimes it's like, oh, that's my mom's voice. That's not coming from me. Or if it is actually my voice, it's from an experience where I actually needed love and I got something different. So I think kind of walking that backwards from this bigger fear and like, where's it really coming from to find the root so that when something is in front of you, you can actually say like, I know where this comes from. This is from this experience from my childhood. That's actually not what's happening right now, but I can hold space for both and then take an action that really serves me.
And we have so many stories that create on our fears. And I ask people all the time, is this fear true? Fear feels real, but is it true? Have you experienced this? Is this happening? And most people are like, oh, no. And it's like, well, then let it go.
And then the last piece for that full alignment is the passing test and taking action. And we sort of talked on that in the instant magnetism. It's how can I take action through walking through that fear? And tests will naturally present in order for you to take action when the other pieces are in play.
I just have to give this disclaimer. In my direct peer group, I see over and over and over and over again people that are unable to read and take aligned action. And they do this work or they're familiar with it, but they're not following. And so there are, I want to say, 5 women in my life right now that are seeking partners and seeking career experiences. And I just watch them run into the fire over and over again. And even though I've seen them in the past go through and pass tests, they don't hold out. And then they settle. And then it all starts over again in the sense that they settle so badly, like for an ex, that the universe is like, oh gosh, you're really not ready for the thing you've been calling in. So if I were to say something, just having witnessed that a lot recently, choose better for yourself. And if you're not choosing better for yourself, it's because you don't believe yet that you deserve better for yourself. The same way that you find and get into your grace expander. If you can find your energetic to hold on to, your thing, if you can find that in those moments where you're really up against it, and channel into that, like get into that energy, even if it's blind faith, because you've done enough work to have, and you've seen enough manifestation to have a trust muscle, use that as your anchor. That would be the one thing that I can say, even when I'm in a scrambled position that I'm in now, like I don't even know left from right when it comes to what's happening in my patterns in manifestation, because I know so many are off. Like I have so many tests and things to pass at this moment. If you can find your one energetic to ground into, whatever it is that's coming at you, your pattern or your thing you're manifesting, and you can use that, you can dig into that and lean back on it and use it, it's going to speed up the process for aligned action. Find your energetic, find that, not affirmation, because it's way more than that. It's like something you dig down inside of yourself, like your football coach or your whatever coach would tell you to get that extra oomph when you're really afraid or you don't have what's left in it to go over the finish line. Find what that is so that you can use it when the time presents, because it's going to present over and over until you manifest your thing.
And I found this with my manifestations, and even when Daniel's facing his, it's like you unblock, so much in one category. And eventually you're faced with a moment where it's like, are you willing to let this go? Are you willing to really be done with this pattern, this sort of dynamic that's been presenting? Are you ready to finally move on? And you have to be really honest with yourself and say, am I just doing the bare minimum to try to move past this? Or am I actually taking action that's aligned with the person who doesn't deal with this dynamic anymore, the person who doesn't accept this bad behavior, where am I still holding on out of fear? You know, kind of going back to that instant magnetism, you're getting pushed on that fear there. So where are you still fearful and playing in that old pattern? And how can you finally say, enough's enough. I don't want this to be my story for the rest of my life. I don't want to play this game out again and again. And now I need to start taking action, even though it's uncomfortable, even though it's scary, even though it's new, even though you might feel like an imposter doing it, taking the action that is not in that old trauma loop and is towards the person that you want to be. Oh my gosh, so much change on the other side of that.
That's your manifestation. That's where it lives, is on the other side.
And for our 5-star podcast review winner this month, we have Vic T. Wa 1. Thank you, TBM. This work is amazing. I bought the package in December 2020 because I was struggling with an ending of a friendship. 2020 was a real struggle year, and living in the attic of my mom's house with my husband, we were at rock bottom. I listened to the TBM podcast, and it was so expansive for me. I started to open up my field of what I deserved. Even saying the word deserve made me cringe because I had such low self-deserving feelings. The DIs brought me to tears every time and give me so much to reflect on. I see myself as deserving so much more: a healthy body, money, confidence, and good balanced relationships. Lacy has been a big expander for me because she speaks with so much strength and fluidity. I've been timid my whole life, but this work is healing parts of my trauma that needed to be worked on before I could move into a new way of being. In 2021, my husband and I have manifested buying a home, great friends, many manifestations, like the exact dresser we wanted within 10 minutes of writing it down, for $10. And just recently that we're having a baby. We did a DI 2 months ago, cleared some blocks, and told our baby we're ready for them. And we've been trying for all of 2021. We found out yesterday that I'm 8 weeks along. Congratulations! I love this approach so much. It is deep therapy, meditation, expansion, women being in their strength, and women strengthening others. I'm so grateful for all of you at TBM for doing this work yourselves and to bringing it into the world. I love this review. This is such a heartfelt response, and I'm so glad to see just what 1 year of dedicating to yourself and utilizing the tools can truly bring you. It's really kind of magical. We're so grateful for all of you guys here at TBM, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. We'll see you next week.